Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It is 7:07 now on this Friday morning in the nation's capital. It's O'Connor and Company. Thanks for tuning in here, Washington, D.C., and everywhere around the country. It's Larry O'Connor alongside Patrice Onwuka. Good Friday to you, Patrice.
Good Friday. Good Friday.
Friday. She's always happy on Friday, and I don't blame her.
I am.
Coming up in 30 minutes, we're going to talk to Morgan Ortagus. Now, she works in the White House. She's the Deputy Special Presidential Envoy for the Middle East. She works with Ambassador Steve Witkoff. We'll get her impression, or for that matter, the White House's evaluation of President Trump's trip to the Middle East. I have a feeling it's going to be rather positive. Then at 8:05, former Governor of Maryland, Bob Ehrlich, on the financial woes of the state of Maryland. And then at 8:35, Frank Ray, a country music artist, as we honor National Police Week here in Washington, D.C. That's all coming up. But Patrice, right now we're joined by the author and major in the IDF reserves, Doron Spielman. He's got a brand new book called When the Stones Speak. The remarkable story of the city of David and what Israel's enemies don't want you to know. Major Spielman, thanks for joining us this morning in Washington.
It's a fantastic pleasure. Thank you for having me on this Good Friday.
Well, and I think that your book resonates right now, as you just heard us discuss. We're sort of evaluating the tail end of President Trump's historic trip to the Middle East, where he's visiting all of these Arab nations and coming up with a lot of financial deals. And it seems that his approach to the Middle East right now is, listen, everybody stop killing each other and start focusing on business and commerce and working together for prosperity, and things will be better. And I like that idea. But from your perspective in Israel, is that a little bit naive when you look at the centuries or millennia of history in that region?
You know what it is? I think it is, and President Trump is bolder than most leaders, and he's shaking up the Middle East. But imagine walking into a casino and placing 5 bets, throwing the dice, and then when those dice land, if they land on sevens, you're 5,000 miles away, but Israel is still in the casino. Yeah. And there's a lot of bets taking place right now with leaders who not only do they have, to say checkered past is an understatement. I mean, these are verified terrorists. Some of them took part in 9/11. Others took part in al-Nusra. Others worked for al-Qaeda. But at their very, very core, and this is what I talk about in my book, these are people that reject completely biblical values, any Jewish connection to the state of Israel. That is what actually appears on their press. They've created an entire generation of people that basically believe that Jews and Christians are a falsehood and that Muhammad was the first person in Jerusalem. And what this has created is a deep ideology. And I think the economic deals are fascinating, but we know, because we've been to it before, you can put someone on the White House lawn, they can shake your hand. His name was Yasser Arafat. Once a terrorist, always a terrorist. And so, yes, Israel is very concerned.
It's so interesting this week because we also had the news that the final U.S. hostage from the October 7th, brutal Hamas attacks, was released, Idan Alexander. And I think that inspired so much hope and trust and frankly, good credit to the Trump administration for getting that done. But that doesn't mean that the conflict is over. And right now, U.S. press is trying to say, well, it seems like the President Trump is cutting Israel out of negotiations and out of what's happening in the Middle East and the remaking. How do you view that? Do you think that Israel is absolutely part and parcel along with President Trump and what he's trying to accomplish?
I think that what we're looking at is a new dawn. And I will say this. I think that there has been some communication with Israel, but when we see how Israel has changed our own course of our discussion, for instance, regarding Syria. At first, the reports were that Israel was pressing President Trump enormously not to lift sanctions on Syria. Al-Julani, or al-Shara as he's called, is a twice-time terrorist. He fought Americans in Iraq with al-Qaeda. He then created al-Nusra, which is the Islamic State. And Israel was adamant that not happen. I mean, the guy's only been in power for 2 months, and during that time, 3,000 Alawites were literally killed in cold blood by his own regime. Now, if you look yesterday, Israel's saying, okay, we're going to work with Syria. Hopefully, we're going to bring back the remains of one of our spies. we're in a very difficult situation. I mean, if you can't beat them, join them. However, at the end of the day, we know when you ask about naivete, if you look into the heart, if you look at America and Israel, why are we so close? Israel's a tiny little speck on the other side of the globe. Because at the end of the day, the founding fathers of America and the founding fathers of Israel share the exact same values. We go back to life and liberty, which are discussed in the Bible. That is what my book is all about. When the Stones Speak, it goes underground. Now, I personally saw, as we managing the excavations in the city of David, when we found the pilgrimage road, which was used by Jews and early Christians to go up to the temple, the Muslim Brotherhood, the Obama administration, and the U.S. State Department allied together to try and stop our excavation. Now, why would they stop an excavation? Because it shows that Jews are indigenous to the land of Israel, Christianity is a truth, and we all predate Muhammad by thousands of years. And that is the ideology of these people. And so, yes, economic deals are great. Israel has somewhat been left out, but our eyes are wide open to what's in the heart of these people around us.
Well said. And the Obama administration, their actions towards Israel in that region were just an embarrassing, lamentable time in our recent history, and hopefully we can make good on that. We're speaking with Doron Spielman. He's the author of When the Stones Speak. And I want to get to the details of this because you're so right. For the pro-Hamas, so-called Palestinian cause and the demands for a Palestinian state or a two-state solution, which, by the way, the Palestinians so-called reject. They want from the river to the sea. They want to wipe Israel out. But the cause is predicated on the idea that they have just as much of a historic legacy to the land that Israel now occupies. I hate to use the word occupy. Forgive me for that. That's a loaded word, but you know what I mean. And they try to make the case, and you see it at college campuses here in America with these dimwits who are protesting, that the current state of Israel is really just a bunch of colonizers. That's why this book is so important. And I remember in recent history, biblical scholars were speculating that, maybe David wasn't a real historical figure. Maybe it was just allegory for the Old Testament. And no, we have now discovered, as you say in your book, actual, very real, undeniable historical evidence of not only the Davidic kingdom, but, of course, all of the predecessors of King David.
Absolutely. And, it is, if I look, I was on October 7th called into the Army. On October 8th, I was at the southern border. I was alone with 3 other soldiers on a road of over 100 deserted cars. I opened up one of those cars and I saw the driver's registration covered in blood and lifted it up. And I looked down at my feet and saw that I was standing on zip ties, white zip ties. And of course, now everyone in Israel knows what those are for. And I looked at the soldier, I said, "Why are they using zip ties?" And he said, "Well, these people were taken hostage." And I literally looked around me at this destruction. And you know what they called it? They didn't call it the Gaza flood or the southern Israel flood. It's called the Al-Aqsa flood. The Al-Aqsa Mosque. It is really, at the end of the day for them, about claiming a caliphate that circulates around Jerusalem, around Al-Aqsa. And I looked at it and I felt horrible because I'd started writing this book. And I said, God, why didn't I look into my own book and realize if they come to erase your history, say Judaism and Christianity isn't true, they're eventually going to try to erase you. And now that is exactly the claim that is being repeated on the United States campuses by men and women who supported this against men and women who, like you say, are dimwits, and they are essentially repeating Hamas. And what I do in the book is I literally take apart the Palestinian narrative and its falsehoods piece by piece, and I establish in the bedrock the truth of the Bible and discoveries and the incredible attempts that I've documented that I faced of people trying to stop this. I mean, this is a battle that every person in the world that stands for freedom, stands for the United States, has got to understand. We've got to be armed with the truth. If we are, then we can ideologically defeat those people who are spewing this hatred and this BS on the United States campuses.
That's right. The hatred and the evil and the anti-Semitism, all of it is always rooted in ignorance. And as soon as one's eyes are open to the facts, to the truth, to history, you'll see exactly who the good guys are, if I can put it that.
That's right.
That's simply. Doron Spielman, thank you, and congratulations on the book. It's doing very well. I can see on Amazon it's #1 in multiple categories, including Israel and Palestine history, Middle East politics. When the Stones Speak. Everyone, educate yourself on the reality of the history of this region, and then it's clear exactly who rightfully deserves that land. Thank you, sir. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, and God bless you so much. Thank you.
Amen.
You too.
And actually, are you in Israel right now? It's got to be coming up close to.
No, I actually just flew to America to be with my mom and help her move to Israel. So my 89-year-old mother is coming home to Israel, 89 years old.
Beautiful.
She's coming back to. Isn't that incredible?
That is
so
incredible.
I'm here helping her pack up.
I was going to wish you a Shabbat Shalom, but it's a little early for that. But thanks for joining us.
I'll take it anyway. Thank you.
A few more hours from now.